All right, everyone. Welcome back to the GDFL podcast hosted by yours truly, Andrew Korn. This week, I have joined me, Ryan Plumstead. I think this is your third appearance on the show.
I believe it's three. Happy to be back here, Corn.
Yeah, thanks for joining me this week. So, a little bit of a recap of last week. I was facing Sokol, and Sokol predictably lost, just given the state of his starting lineup. Stun beats you 151 to 108. This is Stun's first time being the top scorer. So, congratulations, Stun. He was pretty excited about that when I was talking to him yesterday. We had a bit of an upset. We have Logan beating Jake 112 to 83. We had Mark beating Chaz 135 to 112. We had Beans beating Shrew 140 to 123. And the greatest upset in GDFL history, we had Trevor taking down Levi 94.6 to 89. I'm pretty sure Levi was favored to win by 51 points in the projections, and Trevor was still able to take him down. Starting Jimmy Garoppolo was his only quarterback.
I don't know if we'll ever see any sort of upset of this magnitude. Talk about timing with where Levi is in his playoff hopes. Talk about Trevor not starting quarterback. I mean, that's about as big as it gets,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, like, luckily, from Levi's sake, all the people underneath him didn't gain any ground on him. We're talking about Shrew lost. Beans climbed up a win, but he needed to go get one. So it kind of just makes the playoff race a little thicker. Chaz losing, I think, is another really big one where he's starting to flirt with maybe not making the playoffs when the first half of the season he was the heavy favorite, and now he has CMC back. So, you wonder what's happening for Team Chaz. The only other thing I really have here is that the ups and downs and the roller coaster that is only Zion. That's Jake's team. I don't know if I could flirt with those ups and downs, but some weeks you go 180 and others you go 80. So
Yeah. He has an incredibly boomer bust team. And I think a lot of that is JMO is one of his best players. And then also just like guys like MVS, he's been starting, who again sometimes have zero, sometimes he'll have 25.
yeah, I mean MVS was someone that I had dropped a quarter of the way through the year, I believe. So Jake, the top end, the Jamar Chases and Alvin Kamara's, they can carry you through a week, but he certainly could use some more depth, I do believe.
Yeah.
So
I will give him credit. Devon Vele has been pretty good for the Broncos this year, and that was a pretty good get for Jake.
we all had a chance to get him too. I think Jake spent maybe less than $10 in Fab. I'd have to go look, but I remember thinking, "Oh, that's a fifth or sixth round rookie." What are the chances that he actually gets playing time? And
Yeah.
there's, I think, a lot of guys that were even drafted that you redo the draft here today. He would be someone that you grab in the third or fourth round.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is if we were to redraft today, he's probably a third rounder with the way he's been playing, which is insane because he's a 26-year-old rookie. Never would have thought that was ever going to happen. But here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and then I'll look at the standings. So now Mark is all alone in first at 9-3, and he has a pretty big lead in points now. So I mean, the one seed is Mark's to lose at this point. At 8-4, we have myself, you, and then Stun. We have Chaz at 7-5. We have Levi at 6-6. And then in 17th, ninth, we have Jake, Shrew, and Beans all at 5-7. We got Sokol and Logan at 4-8, and then we got Trevor at 3-9.
Yeah, I mean, starting at the top, I think Mark is well on his way to locking in that one seed. He wins one game over the next 2 weeks. Realistically speaking, his PF is too high to be able to really have anyone catch him. Hang on here, real quick.
Yeah, that's all right. Ryan's getting interrupted by some dogs. I can talk in to fill the void. But yeah, I mean, I think Mark's one win away from clinching a bye. He really just hasn't had a bad week all season. Where my team,
There's
my team's put up the three absolute stinkers this year, and like I think my highs have been higher, but my lows have been way lower than what Mark's have been.
he
So
put up like a 50 or 60 point week 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe his 80 points,
yeah,
but it was
I have three. I have
gross.
2 games of 80 and like one of 60 or 65 this year, and then I
Yeah.
also have like 4 games above 150. So I'd have to double check the exact numbers, but it's been a bit of my team's also been a bit of a roller coaster. Not to the extreme of Jake's, but
No. No.
yeah.
But yeah, right at the top, it seems like it's going to be a three-headed race for that 2 seed. Corn, you and I have a big matchup this week here. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure we'll dig into matchups here in a moment, but yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. It really seems like that top four is pretty well locked in terms of that's going to be the top tier. The top four seeds 5 and 6. Chaz seems like he has a little bit of a neck ahead, but he's been imploding here, and that's not a good trend line to be on going into the playoffs. And then we kind of touched on it earlier. You know, Levi does hold a little bit of a lead here for the 6 seed, but I do know that he has a matchup with Barb and Jake and Beans are they're on his coattails as well too. It's really anyone's game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chaz has enough of a lead in points because he would need to lose out, and then one of Jake, Shrew, and Beans need to win out for him to really miss the playoffs at this point. And I think he has
Yeah.
enough of a buffer in points. I think Chaz is safe, but I mean, I'm not going to call it in yet. I really don't know what to make of the 6 through 9 seeds right now. We'll go into it on the next slide when we go through the everyone's matchups left. But it's the race for that last playoff spot's a bit of a mess with Levi losing to Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, we it's been touched on the last handful of podcasts, but you talk about implosion and really uh that was Levi's chance. It felt like to really solidify his playoff hopes, especially with Chaz losing. You know, thankfully, if you're a Cows fan, all the teams below him really weren't able to make up a win. So, um, fumble avoided, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then just I guess before we move into the everyone's matchups the rest of the season, just a quick look at what the draft order would be. Sokol actually made up a lot of ground on Logan for that Sec 2 pick there, and I didn't think it was going to be in play, both the way Logan's team played last week and the way Sokol's team played last week. I think Sokol's still very much in the race. I mean, Sokol gutted the fuck out of his team, and I think they
And
very much run for the 2 seed or the 2
yeah,
pick.
and really, he's going to need some. I anticipate that Sokol's going to creep up closer and closer and closer to Logan's max PF there, or creep down, I guess, to Logan's max PF. But you know, Sokol has like 8 roster spots open, and I think that it's really smart for him to not hang on to those because you play your bare bones starters, and if you know you don't have the MVSs or the Westbrook Akines who are going to pop off for a long touchdown and kind of raise that max PF. So I think it's a really smart move. And, you know, Logan really has no incentive to sell the farm. So I've hit him up a number of times to see if he's willing to move some of his older players. And I think just he really has no skin in the game. So he'd rather see himself upset a Jake like he did this week. And can't really blame him for it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Sokol not filling out a full bench has been, I think, working to his advantage. I will say, just for everyone listening, the league rule is you just have to have 10 players in your starting lineup. And so that just requires you having one player at every position on your roster.
Okay. Good to
That's
know.
like, I mean, it's not like official, it's like very unofficial, but it's just like more of like a good faith like rule. It's like you're supposed to be setting your lineup every week in good faith, just to make sure no one's tanking and giving away free wins. It's just making it everyone just make sure you have a full roster every week or full lineup every week.
I have to believe that. I mean, at least from my own perspective, I have to believe Trevor gets a kick every time he gets a win, and you know, like we all know who the bottom of the league is at this point, and it's Trevor. But I have to believe he really likes to go get a win, and it's a pride thing, right? Nobody wants to see that L.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that season Levi had last year. I mean, Trevor's season's pretty comparable because like to what Levi went through last year, but Trevor still has 3 wins at least. I think Levi only had one last year.
Yep.
So yeah, Trevor being able to string off 3 wins. I remembered before the season talking to him. He's like, if I my goal is to win a game this year. I want the first overall pick and I want to win a game. And I think he's well on his way to accomplishing that.
Goals are accomplished. Yeah, really not a whole lot to say otherwise.
Yeah. We also had a few big trades go down. So this one was between Shrew and Levi. It was pretty much Jonathan Taylor in a second for AJ Brown. I think Levi's gearing up for the playoffs, and I guess he preferred Jonathan Taylor over AJ Brown for the playoff run. Uh, I really like it for Shrew. I mean, his receiver core now is AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Puka, and that's a pretty solid trio to build around. I think they're all top 10 receivers.
Don't
And
forget about Ayuk either, who had a bum of a year, but coming off injury and showed flashes
yeah,
before. So
oh yeah, no, Ayuk and Tank Dell are still on his team too. Like
yeah,
I was just like pointing out that Shrew now has 3 top 10 receivers, and then he has a pretty good stable of running backs who are all like RB2 types, but they're all still good.
yeah. I mean, go get your guys. If you're Levi, you get a little bit of vig by getting that second rounder back, but I think on a week over week basis, JT and AJ Brown are going to provide probably pretty similar ceilings and floors. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I think it does make sense both ways. Long term speaking, I probably like AJ a bit more, just the nature of running backs. But maybe that's where that second round pick comes into play.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I like AJ Brown a little bit more, but Levi does get the extra second back in return, which he could use for something else. So the next one was a trade that you had with Levi. It was Jalen Polk and Roma Dunze for Jordan Assen and Trey Benson. You want to talk us through this one?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I think I'm super pumped about this trade. When I bought into Addison this off season, I liked the prospect, and as soon as that happened, I think there was an injury scare plus uh, a legal issue that kind of came into play as well too, and so I've pretty much had a sour taste in my mouth with Addison moving forward. So he has been a name that I've kind of kept throwing into trade offers, and I really liked Odunze going into the draft this year. Really didn't have an opportunity to go get him, but the pieces aligned here, and I think truthfully, I think it's a pretty fair trade in terms of the pieces and the young guys. But yeah, happy to buy into a big prospect like Odunze.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted on the show last week. I'm pretty high on Odunze still. I don't think he's the leading receiver on the Bears anymore. He was going into this past week, but again, I think a lot of that offense was just Shane Waldron being a horrendous offensive coordinator. And like I think going into the season, like Odunze was someone you knew just like probably wasn't going to pop off right away just because of the talent he had around him, like the other receivers on this team. So I like it. I still like Rome Odunze, the prospect, quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the way that I looked at it was, I think the ceilings of both the Vikings and the Bears offense are fairly similar this year and moving forward, especially with Waldron being fired. But, moving forward, I don't know if Jordan Addison can ever be the number one with Justin Jefferson around. So I kind of looked at this as like, how can I buy into a number one receiver? And I think that Odunze a year from now is probably the number one. As he spoke about on the pod last week, he already was the receiving leader, but I think he becomes more of a bona fide
Mm-hmm.
number one by this time next year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it works out. I mean, because Levi immediately, I think an hour later, flipped Jordan Addison and Jalen Tolbert for Najee Harris and Logan second, which is either the 202 or the 203. And so Levi has really committed to building around running backs for this playoff run, picking up Najee here. I mean, I think Logan really needed another receiver, or just any receiver on his team. I think Amari Cooper was his wide receiver one, and Tyler Lockett was his number two. So Logan really desperately needed anything in the receiver room to help him out. I think Gasson was a good get. Tolbert was playing pretty well before Dak got hurt too. Like just fine as like a if he's a your low end flex, I think he's a fine starter.
I think Logan has a lot of building concerns, and I really like this move. If I'm Logan, I buy into a young receiver who the value is probably pretty insulated here the next 2, 3, 4 years. Like you said, Tolbert is a flex value. He does give up the 202, 203 pick, but he's moving off of a running back who's 25, 26 years old. And, by the time Logan's going to be competitive again, is Najee Harris going to be relevant? And I think that this move makes a lot of sense. So I think Addison certainly will be relevant around that time. We'll see about Colbert. But yeah, I mean, I like this move both ways. I think Levi's really gearing up for a playoff run here. And it's so interesting the way that the Cows run their organization. He just flips assets all the time, and you know sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's just the nature of the business, I think. But if you look at Levi's roster last year compared to this year, I don't even know if he has one player that
Hmm.
was on his roster last year.
Yeah,
So
like Anthony
um,
Richardson probably.
yeah, Anthony Richardson. I think I think you can count on one hand.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that was something when I was doing one of the newsletters this summer. Like I was like doing a summary of who Levi traded away and traded for because he'd made like 25 trades. So like he only like traded away 10 players off his team last year and added like 10 new players. He would trade for someone and then immediately trade them again for something else. Like pretty much every trade in the offseason just ran through Levi one way or another. Yeah, Najee Harris, I don't particularly like for this playoff run. I mean, I traded him away in another league because his strength of schedule for the rest of the year was pretty tough. Like if you were to go on sleeper and then like look at the game log, every matchup after their bye is dark red. So
yeah,
I think Najee's pretty much a touchdown or bust flex option. If he gets
but
those
that
touchdowns though, it's a okay. It's just that's
and
the goal
that's
list.
the thing is you never know when an offense is going to end at the 1 yard line, and Najee's a beast when it comes to that 1 yard touchdown. And strength of set schedule is a real thing, but that Steelers offense has proven to put up 30, 40 point, maybe not 40, but 25, 30 points a game. Um, and you have to believe there's some rushing touchdowns involved there, even though Russ has taken his moonshots. I think that Tomlin likes balance and wants to run the ball. So um, I understand the buy.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I definitely understand it. Yeah, it's just Najee was just not someone I would be personally targeting, but if that's Levi's guy, it's your guy.
That's the guy.
And then lastly, we have a trade. It was again flipping that second round pick that he had just gotten from Logan, flipping him to Sokol for Travis Etienne. I think this is more of a buy for next season than this year, just the way the Jaguars' offense has looked. Lawrence may or may not come back. Uh, if Etienne can come back to the level he was at last year when he was, I think, either RB3 or RB4, could be a pretty good buy low. I get it for Sokol, though. Again, that just created a hole at running back on his team. I think Dare Ogumbawale, the only running back on his roster right now that's healthy. So
Again, he's
point him.
he's he's making some really strategic moves to lower his max PF, right? Um, I like this for Sokol. I like it for Levi. I'm trying to think even all the way back to so essentially Levi got Trey Benson, Najee Harris, and Travis Etienne with some pick swaps for Roma Dunze and Jalen Polk. Is that how that plays?
Yeah. So
The first one doesn't
no picks. Yeah. So we got
contain.
Addison and Benson. I'm just gonna call it Najee in a second, and then Tolbert's. And so he traded away Polk,
Polk.
Dunze, Tolbert for Addison, not Addison, for Benson, Harris, ETN. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to keep track, and like there's a lot of moving pieces with the like. There's a pick swap in almost all these deals too.
Yep. 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 So,
It's hard to keep track.
but I mean, if you're looking to get into the playoffs, you're kind of moving some young prospects and onto reliable high floor players, and that's really the recipe for success, I think. When you have starting RB2s as your last flex plays. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I think it makes sense. It seems like Levi's. Who would have thought at this point last year that Levi was all in and buying aging running backs and whatnot? So
Mhm.
credit to him.
Yeah, no, if you look at his roster from the end of last year to the today, yeah, it just is completely different.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. And again, I think it goes to show for everyone in the league, if you want to like change your fortune, change your luck, you can look at what Levi's roster was last year and look what he's been able to turn it into. Like I think if everyone puts in the time and effort like Levi has to turn it around, I think you absolutely can. Just have to be making a bunch of maybe not a bunch as many trades as Levi made, but making trades like making me splitting players into two pieces. I think it worked out really well for Levi.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Levi is ahead of schedule, certainly. So
Mhm. Yeah. So then I want to do a quick look. This is going back to what we were talking about earlier of like what the playoff picture looks like and pretty much what the matchups are rest of season. So the only matchups between current projected playoff teams are me versus you this week. And the winner controls our own destiny for being the 2 seed, more than likely.
yep.
Stunk, I think, still could pass you in points. But for the most part, I think the winner of our matchup is probably the 2 seed.
Yeah, Shun could get me. It would take 2 pretty poor weeks for him to be able to catch me. I think I don't know exactly what it is, but
Yeah, I think it might have only been 20 points. It might also be 40. I couldn't tell you the exact number.
yeah, 40 is the gut. Here, I'll pull it up here, but I'll listen.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going. I mean, looking at most of the play, I mean, I have the hardest strength of schedule among the playoff teams. Most of the teams in the playoffs still have at least one easy matchup left, or on the easier side. Stun actually has a pretty favorable schedule facing Trevor this week and then facing Jake next week. But yeah, the teams I really want to focus on are Levi, Jake, Shrew, and Beans. Just because Levi has Sokol this week. Sokol completely gutted his team. You just never know what's going to happen. But I mean, Levi should win. But again, he lost to Trevor last week, so who knows? And then Levi in week 14, his roster is looking pretty bleak. Like I think he has of his top like 12 to 13 players, like 8 or 9 of them are going to be on a bye. And so it could be tough sledding for Levi to make the playoffs if he doesn't have it clinched essentially this week.
Yeah, I mean, again, talk about the fumble last week. What an opportunity to lose. But hey, that's the nature of this thing. Anybody can be anybody any given week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just for reference, Stun, I have a 20-point lead on Stun in the PF. So we'll see how that goes these last 2 weeks. So he definitely could lap me there. I was thinking it was 40 or 50 points, but Stun put up 160 this week, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say Saquon's night on Sunday night really helped him out there, putting up like a was it like 45 or whatever it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
helpful. But yeah, looking at all these 5 and 7 teams, so Jake and Beans is a pretty big matchup this week. I mean, it's pretty much an elimination game. I feel like I've been saying it for weeks, but like I feel like this time it's
It's
actually true.
it's actually true. I mean, I'm trying to think of if you're 5 and 8, I don't believe you can make it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, and I was like looking, it's like Beans' team is actually has some momentum right now. Like Lamar's been the best player in fantasy. Chase Brown's been really fucking good.
yeah,
Cortland Sutton the last 5 weeks has been a top 5 receiver.
yep.
Uh,
Chubb has been a nice little play.
yeah,
Two
Josh Downs has
touchdowns
been
last
good.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, like Beans actually has it's like a low key like pretty good team right now. The only
It's
thing
one of the, it's one of those where I think if you're a playoff contender, you're whispering to yourself and saying, I hope that Jake wins that this week.
Mhm. Yeah, but like with Beans also in week 14 has a pretty shitty like schedule with his buys because he has Lamar who's going to be on bye. Cortland Sutton's going to be on bye. Josh Downs is going to be on bye. And then,
But he has Trevor. So I mean,
well, it has
maybe
Trevor.
maybe Beans is able to flip an asset or two and get off one of those bye weeks with somebody who's already clinched or who's already been eliminated. But if you're Beans, I think you're strongly thinking about, am I selling or am I buying? We have a week left, right? 1 week. So try to get in a trade or two before the deadline here.
Yeah, and then like Beans' team's pretty frisky. I think it's the best way to put it. And then like you don't even have to like have that big of a buy either. You could trade away a second for like another flex or like a couple
Yeah.
thirds maybe, and just like get something that's gonna like be startable for a week. Doesn't have to
Or
be expensive.
or flip one of those guys who's on a buy for just a slight marginal downgrade for someone who will be playing week 14. There's a lot of options, but
hmm
if I'm Beans, I'm strongly considering how can I get in.
Yeah, like I said, though that last playoff spot is just an absolute mess.
It'll be fun to watch.
hmm Yeah, so we kind of touched on all the matchups. So I just want to do a quick touch up on like the two that I think are most important. One is me versus you. Winner is going to be on track to get the 2 seed.
Yep.
And then the other one is Beans versus Jake. That's going to be a pretty big one for seeing who can potentially fight Levi for that 6 seed.
Yeah, in terms of the top end of the standings, I don't think I feel all that confident in my clinching of the spot, but I think I stay alive. If I'm able to knock you off here, it's just a battle of points for
hmm
really.
Yeah,
But I do think that if you get the win this week, you're probably in that 2 seat feeling really good.
yeah.
Um,
It's like
but
the only thing is like Stun has 2 easier matchups than what I do the next 2 weeks. So if
sure,
I even if I win, I need Stun to like
that's
lose
also
at least
true.
once to guarantee it.
Yeah,
But
also true.
yeah, you have Logan next week, so I mean, and on paper that should be a win, week 14. If you
We'll
do have
see.
to win, we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I'm just happy to be in the position. I think I am ahead of schedule as to where I was sitting walking into the draft. I think I am happy to be
Mhm.
sitting here.
Yeah, no, like I said on last week's show, you have 4 wins by 6 points or less. Not gonna, no excuses for, no, not gonna apologize for having a win.
Nope.
That's just the way it goes.
Nope.
All right, so we're kind of running lower on time than I would hope, but that's all right. So we're gonna do a little bit of a way too early 2025 quarterback carousel. So I went through and put teams in different tiers of definitely getting a new quarterback, might get a new quarterback, and won't get a new quarterback. And so in the definitely tier, I have the Jets, Raiders, Browns, and Giants. I could maybe put the Browns in the might just because of Deshaun Watson's contract. They won't be able to get out of it. But for the most part, I feel pretty confident that all 4 of those teams will bring in someone else. And the might tier, I don't expect most of these teams to make a move, but like they potentially could just based on contract situations or performance. And then that's the Steelers, the Colts, Titans, Seahawks, Rams, Saints, and Panthers. So, I mean, taking a look at my list, is there anything different that you would potentially make?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the Browns sit somewhere in between category one and category two. Like you mentioned, the contract situation with Deshaun Watson is a mess, but they're sitting at a top two or three or four pick. I think, you have to take a strong look at one of those top two quarterbacks, Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. Little surprised to see the Steelers there, but again, if you've been watching Russ the last 2 weeks, um, he hasn't been as good as advertised, I don't think. So, and they have no commitment contractually to him.
Yeah,
So
that's the biggest reason why they're in this tier is he's not under contract next year. They don't have any quarterbacks under contract next year. So just because of that, it's the only reason why I think they're going to bring him back. But that I just kind of had to put him there because there's
I could
no guarantees.
see, just looking at your list here, I could see kind of like a category for like the Jaguars, the Cowboys. You could even probably throw like maybe not the Browns because it's been terrible. Maybe even like the 49ers, but has a quarterback, but will they move off them? Right? I know
Yeah. So
contractually it's a large commitment, but
I think I looked at it. So for the Cowboys to move off of Dak, I think they'd have to have eat $150 million in cap space. That's just
yeah,
not going to happen. Like the
no,
Cowboys and Jags both just signed T Law and Dak. I really don't think they're going to move on.
I
49,
don't either. I don't.
49ers is a maybe, but I think with the way Brandon Allen played last Sunday, pretty much proved what Purdy's actually worth. And then he's kind of been a little bit of the engine that runs that offense.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers have a little bit of a cap doomsday coming up if they sign Purdy to 55, 60 mil a year. I have a coworker who is a 49ers fan and he's calling for Shanahan's job. He's saying trade Brock for a first, that sort of thing. So maybe that's whispers in my ear of that. But I could see a team like that coming out of that category all the way to the right and figuring out a way to eat some cap and trade away a quarterback.
Yeah,
So
it could happen. That's just I put it as like low probability, and like even a lot of
yeah,
these teams in the Mike category, like the Saints moving off of Carr, like they're going to bring in a new regime. It's a massive cap hit. It's like a 50 million cap hit to cut Carr. It could happen, but the Saints have such cap problems. I really don't know what they do from here. So that's one where I'm not really sure. The Seahawks and Rams, I don't think they're going to move off of Geno or Stafford, but both of them have outs on both their contracts, and they're both
yep.
kind of older. I think they're both going to stay there another year. Don't really know. And then Colts, Titans, Panthers, I think are all in the same boat. Underperforming young quarterback. They've all three have looked a lot better the last like 4 or 5 weeks now, though.
They have. Yep, I
So
was just gonna mention that. So it's a little early on A Rich, at least. I
mhm.
mean, what is it? That was week two that we just
Yeah,
saw. He looked good week one, week two.
I thought he passed the eye test last week, but they had a lot of plays called back to penalty, and like he
Yep,
definitely missed some throws, but I think for the most part he looked solid.
I agree.
And then
Bryce Young has been playing pretty well,
went toe
truthfully.
to toe with Mahomes last week.
Yeah. So, you know, I think the category name fits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then just taking a quick look at some of the available quarterbacks. So PFF had three quarterbacks with the first round grade. They had Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, like you mentioned. They also had Milrow actually as the top rated quarterback, which I thought was kind of surprising because I think
Interesting.
Bama fans are sick of Milrow and want him to transfer, want him out. I don't know when that list was made either because I know he had a shit showing against Oklahoma on Saturday. And then just like the key vet free agents I think are available are Sam Darnold, who I think has been playing well enough. He's going to earn a starting job somewhere, or at least to be a chance to fight for a starting job somewhere. Don't know where that is yet. Got Russ and Fields, and then Jameis Winston and Daniel Jones is like the top free agents who I think would be most likely to start elsewhere if there's an opening.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to that might move off the QB situation, if the Rams move off Stafford or if the Seahawks move off Geno, that obviously means those are probably the top vets on the market if they were to be moved off of. But yeah, I mean, really, I'm agreeable with you. I think Sam Darnold is certainly has earned another look, whether it's with the Vikings or not. I mean, you could see, I mean, I think I see like two scenarios for Darnold come the offseason, one of which is that he gets an offer like Baker got last year for 30, 35 plus, or he gets the 1 year deal that he kind of got with the Vikings this year. It'll be interesting to see, what the Vikings really do because McCarthy is coming off of second knee surgery, and Sam Darnold has gotten them to what, a 9-2
They're nine
record.
and two right now, and he's playing well.
He's playing well. He's not perfect, but what quarterback is other than Jared Goff?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know, truthfully, I have empathy in my heart for guys like Justin Fields and Daniel Jones. I think that neither has played well enough to be the guy, but I also think they were hit with some pretty harsh media teams, some pretty high expectations, and some failing GMs and coaches. So it'll be interesting to see if Fields or Daniel Jones can kind of find themselves in I don't know, like a McVay system or a Viking system, even
Mm-hmm.
like a Detroit Lions system, become a high end backup and then figure out how to go get another contract in a starting position somewhere else. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, like I think all five of these vets, Darnold, Wilson, Fields, Winston, Jones, I think they're all top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. That doesn't mean there's going to be a starting spot for them though, because teams will want to try out a younger player and see what they have in a younger player who might have a higher ceiling than what these guys offer.
The question is Bryce Young, is Anthony Richardson, is Will Levis, are they top 32 quarterbacks as well too? So you could see those teams taking on a bet.
Yeah. So I don't think we're gonna have time to like do a full matchmaker of who I think goes where, but I did make a rankings of like the teams I think could move on from a quarterback and in order. So I think the Giants are the team most likely to have a new quarterback for pretty obvious reasons.
Yep.
That Jets at 2, Raiders at 3, Browns at 4, Titans 5, Steelers 6, Saints 7, Colts 8, Panthers 9, Seahawks 10, and Rams at 11. I think pretty much from 6 to 11, I would keep all the quarterbacks that they currently have, like maybe bring in some competition, like one of these vet free agents. But otherwise, for the most part, I think they're going to be running it back. But
I
yeah,
doubt the Rams really make a move, truthfully, unless they go trade up and go get a quarterback.
yeah,
It'll be interesting to see those top four teams. You have to believe they're all looking pretty hard at the draft, but like you said, there's only three quarterbacks there, and kind of the Quiniers or some of the other guys are kind of Carson Beck are kind of dropping the ball here this year. So
mm-hmm,
um, there's three quarterbacks listed, but four spots who are looking hard at the draft.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we have less than a minute left, so I'm just going to wrap it there. Ryan, thank you for joining the show. Do you have any final closing thoughts before we get this thing stopped?
Go Lions.
Yeah, go Lions. Best team in the NFL. I was saw on ESPN today that they have the Lions as the second best offense, the second best defense, and the number one in special teams. What a time to be
The
alive.
best team in the league.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I like genuinely think they're the best team in the league, and never. I don't know. It's crazy to see the day, but we are here. Go Lions. I love you all. Thank you all for listening to the show, and we'll see you later.
Go Lions.
Go Lions.